617-830-4750 is the number. Let's go to our caller from the 978 area code. Who's calling today from 978?
Hello, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I'm a Mass resident. I guess I consider myself more of a libertarian than anything else.
Okay.
And kind of being a libertarian, I think my general nature has always been to kind of be a person that's in the middle or tries to see things from the middle. And I can typically appreciate both points of view, so forth and so on. And one of the things that I'm struggling with in general is this polarization towards party and the fact that we seem to be in this pattern where once one party takes office or seemingly takes control of things, they reign supreme and they basically steamroll over the other party completely at the expense of it. And of course, there's always some sort of moral or other justification for doing so.
Okay, so hold on. That's a good. Let's explore whether that's. If we're going to discuss that, we should explore whether that's the case. What's an example of how, for example, the Obama administration steamrolled Republicans and did stuff?
All right, so I'm a person that's my memory with things in general, just day-to-day life things, honestly, is just like terrible. So, I mean, when I have to recall something, I mean, I can't even remember my kids' birthdays for crying out loud. So it's very difficult for me to just do that kind of stuff in general.
Okay, fair. So I guess what I was trying to get to is I simply don't think that it happens the way you're saying it happens. So let me give you the Obama example. President Obama became president of the United States in 2008. He was inaugurated in 2009. He had the House and Senate for those first 2 years until the Tea Party surge took over control of, I guess it was just the House in 2010. What was he able to do? It's like, okay, he got Obamacare passed, which was a center-right idea from a conservative think tank from the 90s, which gave tens of millions of new customers to for-profit insurance companies. We had Sandy Hook
and Massachusetts,
yes, and Romney Care. We had Sandy Hook and like 90% consensus in the U.S. that we need 100% universal background checks. He still wasn't able to get it done. So he had a Supreme Court pick, which Republicans just said, yeah, we're not even going to hold confirmation hearings. So I don't see any steamrolling that the quote president in power was able to even do.
Okay, so certainly certainly there are interesting dynamics when you have like a Congress and the executive branch that are aligned, and you would think then that they would just simply get their way and do everything. Well, there's a funny dynamic that seems to happen where the parties all of a sudden become aware of that, and that opens the door for them to be, more polarizing towards things that are going on, let's say, in their own state, their own constituency and stuff, and that kind of infighting prevents additional things from potentially happening.
But Steve, isn't that the exact opposite? Aren't you conceding that it's actually the opposite? You said your concern is a party wins the White House and then they steamroll everybody in the other party. I kind of gave a counterexample saying, well, it didn't happen under Obama. And you're saying, oh, right, yeah, because when one party's in power, they start infighting and they still actually don't really get that much done. That's kind of the opposite of your initial argument, isn't it? Which I'm glad that we're figuring out. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying, it seems that you're agreeing with me that it doesn't quite happen the way you suggested.
Well, I think to some extent that's true.
Okay.
And I'm certainly willing to concede that. But so I think the thing with steamrolling, and here's kind of what I mean, like this notion of both branches kind of they have these committees and they go off and they work on creating some sort of bill that they hope becomes a law, and they do it by themselves. They're in their own little echo chambers, whether it's a Democratic, whether it's Republican or whatever, and they come out knowing full well that the other side is going to have supreme opposition to it.
Yes.
And then try to push that through. I come from a base where I like collaboration and compromise. So, for example, and we have things with voter ID, we have things with guns and gun controls and stuff. An example of a collaboration, in my point of view, in other words, we're going to genuinely consider the other party's point of view, their needs, so forth and so on, might be, what? Why don't we try to pass things like voter ID, but why don't we also try to pass things like gun reform, where we have, the extensive background checks, where we make sure that people
Yeah.
are truly registered and licensed, and they know all about weapon safety and stuff.
I'll tell you
That's
why,
the kind of
Steve,
thing that
because
I'm talking
that's
about.
exactly how we end up in these situations where you have a bill about voter ID, where the opposition party says, let's stuff some things about gun control in there. And then the other party says, hey, that doesn't really have anything to do with what we're doing. And the other party says, well, if you don't pass my gun control thing, I'm not going to. We've seen that already is what they try to do. And it just doesn't really work that well. It creates a different type of gridlock. I appreciate what you're saying. I am always, I would suggest people re-examine if they see themselves as the sort of enlightened centrists who could make everybody come together. I would read a little bit of the history of American politics over the last 40 years to realize it's not quite so simple. I got to move on, but I appreciate the phone call, Steve.
Sure, thank you.
All right, take care.